Welcome to the Manifestation Method podcast, where we dive deep into personal transformation, healing, and unlocking the life that you were meant to live. Today's episode is for those of you stepping onto the path of inner healing. Whether you're just beginning or have been walking this path for a long time, because healing is not just about feeling better. It's about becoming more of who you truly are. It's almost an unlearning. It's a journey of shedding old identities, of facing your shadows with a lot of compassion, and stepping into your highest potential. And while this journey is one of the most rewarding paths you'll ever take, it's important to know that the path is not always easy. So today we're going to talk about what you can expect as you embark on your healing journey, how it unfolds, what some of the challenges are that you might expect, what the breakthroughs can look like, and most importantly, how to navigate the journey with a whole lot of grace. Let's get into it. Becoming a co-creator with the Creator is your birthright. Together, we'll journey into your deepest authenticity. Because the more you align with who you truly are, the more effortlessly you call in the life that you desire and deserve. And most importantly, the more you step into your soul's highest purpose. Welcome to the Manifestation Method podcast, your #1 source for Kabbalistic manifestation. Here we combine the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah, modern psychology, and quantum physics to help you achieve real, tangible manifestation results with my proven Abra method. I'm Ayelet Polonsky, and I'm here to guide you on your journey of manifesting a life that is aligned, expansive, and deeply connected to your highest self through the sacred energetic mechanics of Kabbalistic manifestation. To learn how to use Kabbalistic manifestation to transform your life from the inside out, go to ayeletpolonsky.com or download the Manifestation Method app. Let's open the gates of manifestation together.
Yeah, so I yell it let's just talking about healing in general. We hear about healing all the time, like people's healing journeys, and I think it would behoove us to really define what is healing in the first place and how does the healing journey even begin?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand, right, that first moment that brings people to their healing journey. For so many of us, I know I speak for myself, I can remember the event that happened as though it was yesterday that spawned this, journey that I've been on now for 2 decades. So for some people, what I call it a spiritual awakening. Like for me, when I was 20 years old, I had a spiritual awakening. And for me, it was triggered by a life-altering event, right? So for many people, what calls us to healing or what calls us forward to start embarking on this path of healing could be some sort of experience that we go through, such as a breakup that shatters the illusion of security, let's say, or a loss that leaves a gaping hole in the heart, right? Or maybe a health crisis that forces someone to kind of reassess everything, how they've been doing things, their health choices, how they've been living their lives, who their friends are, right? Or it can be a career shift that really makes a person question their life's purpose. And then for some people, it's not this life-altering event. It's subtler. It's a quiet discomfort or discontent that kind of lingers or plays as background music. It's like a whisper that grows louder, or it can be a sense that something inside is just not right. Something is aching or longing for change. Okay, so this moment, like I said, can be called a spiritual awakening. For others, it's just a call to heal, to change something. right? But it's often that deep nudge or that still small voice that says, something in my life just is not aligned anymore. And I'm tired of repeating the same painful cycles again and again. Or I no longer want to carry this weight in my heart. I know for me, it was like this big epiphany moment where I was like, wait, there's got to be more to life than just this, And so, I can talk a little bit about my own spiritual awakening and how that transpired, because I think it's an important thing to know. But, when I was 20 years old, I had woken up one morning to 80 something missed calls, text messages. Um, and I remember the first thing I did was, instead of checking all those messages, I went onto social media. And I remember scrolling on my news feed, and I mean, this is almost 20 years ago, right? I'm scrolling on so I don't remember I don't know if it was MySpace or Facebook. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
I'm
It's
scrolling
the
my
early social media.
early social media.
Yeah.
And I'm scrolling and I see post after post that says, "Rest in peace, Dawn. We will miss you, Dawn. You will always be in our hearts, Dawn." And I'm thinking to myself, like, who the heck is Dawn? And I keep scrolling, and all of a sudden a picture pops up of my childhood friend, Danielle. And it says, "Rest in peace. We love you. You are our angel now." And my heart dropped to my stomach, because at age 20, I never imagined that something like this could happen to me, that I can lose someone so close. I thought I was invincible up until that point, right? And so right away I called a mutual friend of ours, because that weekend we were, a number of us, including Dawn, were supposed to go away to like this beach house or something for the summer, or for the weekend rather. And so I called up a mutual friend to see what happened. And she said that Dawn was stood up last night by this guy that she was seeing. And so her best friend, we'll call her best friend D. Her name starts with a D. So we'll call her best friend, Dawn's best friend D, said to Dawn, "Just come with me. We'll hang out with a bunch of guys on motorcycles. They all meet at the local Starbucks. We'll have a good time, and that will be that." So Dawn shows up. They convince her to get on the back of this bike, despite her gut feeling that said, "D, I have a bad feeling about this. I don't want to get on the back of the bike." And D looks at Dawn and says, like, "Don't be a baby. Just get on the bike. What's the big deal? We're just going to cross the George Washington Bridge. We'll go into the city. We'll get a bite to eat, and we'll come right back." All right. Well, Dawn is on the back of the bike with some random guy she just met that night, right? While D is a little bit further behind. Dee's crossing the bridge, and at one point sees in the middle of the George Washington Bridge on the floor the pink jacket that Dawn wore that night. So Dee's guy just goes up ahead, and they see Dawn's body in the middle of the bridge.
Mm.
Dee jumps off her bike, holds Dawn in her arms, and the last words that Dawn ever said to Dee were, "Dee, I love you, and it's not your fault." And then she died in her arms that night.
Oh my God.
And I remember hearing the story. I remember feeling sick to my stomach. And I remember, as clear as this conversation we're having right here, right now, this voice in my head, I get a lot of voices in my head, this voice in my head that said, "Ayelet, you've been alive for 20 years, but you have not yet begun to live." And that was like the first day of the rest of my life, right? I went straight to Barnes and Nobles, to the self-help section. A book called Buddha by Deepak Chopra fell off the bookshelf as I was walking past. And I took that as my sign, went home, read that book, and then went back to the self-help section and bought literally almost every single book from the self-help section. But that was a turning point for me, right? Like my healing journey from that point forward was in stark opposition to who I was as a teenager, right? I was materialistic. I cared about boys, shopping, friends, parties. right? So my life was essentially, I wouldn't say meaningless, but it wasn't filled with purpose and real deep meaning and service. And so really, like, as you know, I bring Dawn into these stories because, I really feel like so much of the work that I do is to honor her. So yeah, so that's how a lot of I think that's how a lot of big healing journeys or spiritual awakening happens. It's like this life altering moment where you kind of look back and you're like, I can't live the rest of my life the way I've been living. Something's got to give, something's got to change. And I really bless everyone that's listening to that, that they're able to have their spiritual awakening or their healing process be one that comes through a story of grace, versus a story of tragedy, but sometimes that's just what it takes.
I'm thinking too right now, before we started recording, we were talking about a mutual friend's healing journey and how it has really been almost like compounded by good girl syndrome. And, sometimes in life there is these really insane and traumatic and intense events that wake us up to what we're not looking at. And then I also feel like there's this other sort of energy of like an energy, like something that is good, like being good for so long, like becomes unbearable. And that unbearable goodness almost forces you to look inward. Like it's like, versus being shook up from the outside, like this internal thing where it's like, I can't continue being this way anymore. And I don't know why, because on paper, everything looks like I have it together or I'm going in a good direction. Like, why do I feel so unfulfilled?
Mhm.
What are some signs too for people whose journeys might feel more like that, for them to be able to have a compass for where to begin?
I'm
So, because like what you're talking about is like this traumatic event with Dawn. And I'm thinking like, okay, like in terms of someone like an Alyssa or an SJ, where it's like they might not have these traumatic moments of awakening.
hmm
Like, what is something for them? Like people who are, here, let me rephrase the question. Like there's like another side of the healing call, like the call to the healing journey, right? Where instead of having some external traumatic shakeup, there is this internal voice that gets stronger over time that says something is not aligned, something is not right, even if everything that I am doing on paper is good or is like putting me towards a good direction.
Mm-hmm.
How does getting on the healing path for people whose journeys are looking more like that begin?
hmm Okay, so yeah, that's a great question, and I think it just goes back to the original statement that I made, where some people it's like the spiritual awakening happens through some big life event, and other people it's a lot more subtle, right? It can be a little bit more of this just internal knowing that something in my life is not aligned anymore, right? Or for a lot of people, like this mutual friend of ours that you're talking about, right? She's just really tired of repeating the same painful cycles over and over and over. And for her specifically, it's a painful cycle of holding on to resentment that's causing her a lot of anger, right? She's angry at her ex-husband, and it's causing a lot of resentment and it's causing a lot of dis-ease in her system. So the discomfort in and of itself is kind of like an arrow pointing her in the direction towards healing, right? It doesn't have to be a big spiritual awakening, right? It can just be a path of healing, right? Or another client of mine, for her, she's like been looking to manifest her soulmate for a number of years now. And there's just this like internal pain around something's missing, something's lacking, and she can't quite shake that feeling that something's missing, something's lacking. And so it keeps her in this perpetual cycle of, not manifesting the right one. And so she now recently really embarked on this healing journey where she's starting to really tap into the abundance that already is and feeling abundant with what is versus feeling into the lack of what isn't. Right. So sometimes this healing journey comes as a result of feeling like something's missing and wanting to fill a void. Right. A
Hmm.
lot of times it's wanting to fill a void. For a lot of people, it can look like just having a lot of like mini lowercase t traumas throughout their life that's kind of has them living with this subtle inner pain, right? Like something like just they're just not happy. They're not just full, they're not in their fullness and they want to be in their fullness. So they embark on a healing journey. Right. And then for some people, it's like there has to be more to life than this. Right. Some people, I see this a lot with people who have lived very like materialistic or superficial lives. Right. Well, they'll meet themselves at a certain point where they'll say, wait a minute, hold on. Like I'm just going on one shopping spree after another. And the fulfillment, the joy is so temporary. It's so transient. Like I want the type of joy that is like in my kishkas, like in my bones, in my tissues, and is not dependent on the next credit card swipe, right? So, I mean, I think those are a lot of different like telltale signs that someone
Hmm.
is ready to go on a healing journey.
Right. And okay, so what does the first phase look like? Like, first we have the call, like the call to heal, whether that's an internal or external push. And then we have the actual first step of beginning.
Yeah, totally. So I'd say the first step on the healing path is that there's often this like rush of excitement or a feeling of exhilaration, right? This feeling of like, yes, I'm finally doing this. I'm ready to change my life. I'm ready to dig and do the inner excavation work. And it might be like in my case, an experience that leads one to read a bunch of self-help books, to start doing some guided meditation. Maybe they hire a therapist and that's how they start. Maybe they get inspired to do some journaling or start a gratitude journal, or maybe a friend just gifts them a book and it just opens their eyes to all new concepts. Right. And so it's almost like it's initial feeling of really because the change is juxtaposed to like your old way of living. It feels so new and it feels exciting, and you kind of like, I know for me, I wanted everybody to drink the juice that I was drinking at the time, because it was like, how could I want everyone to have this? It feels so good, right?
Hmm.
So suddenly, especially at the beginning of the journey, a person feels lighter, feels more hopeful, maybe even euphoric, right? It feels as though you've kind of like gotten the secret key and unlocked a hidden door to your own soul, right? And it's really beautiful and it's really real. And while it's really beautiful and it's so real, I want to like lovingly, you know, warn everyone that this is only the beginning, right? Because healing is not a straight line. And while the highs are incredible, there will also be moments that feel really heavy, really confusing, even painful. And that's okay, because what you're essentially doing is a form of like identity dissolution,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're taking parts of your identity that no longer serve you, that no longer feel in alignment, and you're alchemizing them. You're upgrading them to be a more evolved version of yourself. And that feeling of change, of wait a minute, do I really need to let go of who I once was and enter into this whole new way of being? Right, that can be really disorienting for a lot of people. So if you're on the journey and you're experiencing this, just know I've been there more times than I can count. And it's in those moments of real, like, what's happening? I feel like I need to hold on for dear life. That when I come out of that and I see clearly, like, with a little bit of time, you kind of see the whole painting with more clarity. It's like those moments have led to my greatest transformation, right? So the journey is not always about feeling good. The journey is about becoming whole, which
Mm.
really means embracing both the light and the shadows within you. There's going to be healing moments where you really get to see your own light. And I know for me, just being in this work, like my greatest pleasure and the reason I do it is because there's this moment where I look into a person's eyes and I see that there's this like new light, and that light symbolizes that they are remembering who they truly are. right? And so that's them accessing their light. And it's so beautiful and it's so juicy and it's so empowering. And the journey does not come without accessing shadow as well, which means accessing the pain, accessing the trauma, accessing the hurt, the betrayal, the fear, right? And being able to then bring all of those pieces back into the light. So it's a
Absolutely.
real dance.
Yeah, and I know something we talk about too is just the joke, like once you get the joke on the healing journey, like there's no with self-growth or whatever, we all think of like growth as like there's a thing to grow to or a destination to go to. And I know we laugh a lot about how there's actually no destination. There's only more and more awareness, and it seems like kind of messed up or cruel at first because like when you're healing, especially when you're starting, it's like you want to heal your life, you want to heal your family trauma, you want to be able to have the change that happens within you ripple out into your physical reality so fast, which it does and will. But at the same time, there's always like what you said, like with light comes shadow. Like the greater the light, the greater the shadow. The more you dive
Yeah.
into who you are, the more you have to work through.
Totally, totally. And I think this is where people get really caught off guard because they think
Mhm.
healing is all butterflies and rainbows,
Mhm.
right? But, and after that initial high of self-discovery, something does shift, but oftentimes that shift opens up a space for old wounds to come to the surface.
Totally.
Right. And oftentimes it's like all that stuff that we've suppressed, because we didn't think it needed to heal. We didn't think we've needed to change, or we've suppressed it because it was just too painful to look at. When we
Mhm.
start this journey, it will start to come to the surface. And so it'll cause us to really feel a little bit more emotional than usual, right? It can bring up anger. It can bring up sadness. It can bring up fear. It can even bring up grief, that kind of comes seemingly out of nowhere. And it'll cause us to suddenly start asking ourselves, why am I feeling worse instead of better? Or why are these old memories coming up now? Or am I going backwards instead of
Mhm.
forwards? And the
Mhm.
answer is no, you're not going backwards. It's that
Mhm.
you're finally allowing yourself to feel what has always been there all along. So
Yeah.
think of it like a detox, right? When you cleanse your body, all the toxins rise to the surface before they can be released. And the same happens with emotional healing. You're literally clearing out years, sometimes lifetimes of suppressed emotions, old conditioning, patterns that no longer serve you. And this is the phase that requires the most compassion, like really requires the most compassion. It's the phase where most people, or many people, I should say, will give up because they think the healing isn't working, right? But the truth is, it's actually working now more than ever because true healing isn't just about adding light, it's about transforming the darkness. So there you have it.
Something to look forward to.
But I promise you, I don't want it to sound all. It's. I feel the freest I've ever felt in my entire life. Right. And yes, there's moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. I have to go into it. Hold on for dear
Mhm.
life. But then it's
Mhm.
like, wow, what comes out the other end? It's like, I'm no longer bound by the unconscious version of me that was living life with her eyes closed, or just
Totally.
in the shadows, right? It's like I get to see my patterns with so much clarity. So it's no longer that like my dad's version of me has me in shackles, or my mom's version of me has me in shackles, or my community or my society or my teacher or my husband. It's like, oh, wait, I actually have the sovereignty and the agency and the autonomy to dictate what I feel, how I feel, when I get to feel it. And that's freedom. And it doesn't mean that people aren't going to trigger me, right? But I have so many tools in my toolkit to handle life that I'm no longer running away from myself,
Right.
which
And
is
also too, there's like such a beautiful experience with healing where at the beginning of the journey, you're using like the narrative is still like this outside of here, like out these things outside of me are making me feel this way. versus like, when you've hit a real healing milestone where you turn the finger inward, like to yourself, or turn the mirror to yourself, and you start realizing that the way we are activated, or the way that we respond or react to life, is the gingerbread crumbs to where we need to heal the most, and like really using that as an opportunity to expand our vessel.
Yeah, absolutely. And this really does come as a result of like identity shifting, right? Letting go of who you used to be. As
Hmm.
you heal, you might notice something unexpected, that certain relationships, certain habits, even certain parts of your personality no longer feel like you anymore.
Right.
And this can be one of the hardest parts to healing, letting go of old identities. Like I said, right? It's the version of you that was shaped by the trauma, by the fear, by the needing to please others, or the version of you that played small, that settled, that sat quietly in the corner while everybody was seemingly self-expressed. Right. But here's what I want you to remember is that you're not losing yourself in this process. You're meeting yourself, your truest self. And the deeper you heal, the more you return to who you were before the world told you who to be. And while that can really be uncomfortable, it's one of the most sacred, beautiful parts of the journey. It's like I have so many of my clients who tell me all the time, like, Ayala, you walk into a room and it's like, it seems like you're so sure of yourself, right? Like you're so sure of yourself. And I have to remind them, like, I wasn't like this 25 years ago. It really, and I'm still on the journey of healing. I will forever be on the journey of healing, but the level of confidence and self-assurance and inner knowing, and it comes as a result of shedding the parts of me that aren't truly me, that are just the versions of me that other people told me I was, and reclaiming that sense of self again, which is, I mean, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice by not embarking on this journey.
Right. And I think too, like that's what we really come here to have an experience of remembering who we are.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Which,
no, no, no. I mean, it's just like that's like the joke. It's like like I was thinking too, you were saying, like even like swiping a credit card and being like, why isn't this enough? Like, why am I not being fulfilled? I think so much too. I was having a conversation with someone this past weekend where they have had a really, really successful career. They're married, like they're spiritual, like they're in like, a religious community, and they are now just realizing like how deeply unfulfilled their life is because they have been literally living their life for family approval. And it's taken them like so long just to realize that. And also too, like being part of a family isn't a bad thing. Like that's like also another deep level of healing. It's like when we have certain attributes about ourselves or certain reactions, that they're easy to spot, like anger or having resentment or bitterness, like those are, or jealousy, like those are kind of easy things to be like, oh, I really need to look at this, or why, they're easy to figure out. But the ones that are good, like having achievement or wanting belonging or being giving, like that's also too is they all need to be looked at. Like every part needs to be looked at and healed.
yeah, it's a real rebuilding. You're rebuilding yourself to come back to yourself. I don't know what other way to put it. And that's the real integration process. The rebuilding is the integration that leads to expansion, right?
Hmm.
Because you're rebuilding, but this time you're creating from a place of truth. Who am I really? Right? Which can look like, what is the healing journey once it's integrated look like? It can look like that you're setting boundaries without feeling guilty about it. You're not going to that codependent dance of setting a boundary and then the other person resists the boundary and then you go all codependent and you're like feeling all shameful that maybe you were too hard on the other person or whatever. It's like there's this dance of really owning, where do I start? Where do I end and the other person begin? Where do I end and the other person begins? And so there's this sense of like honoring what is an alignment for yourself without feeling guilty about it. Right. Another thing that comes in this healing journey is that you start to attract healthier relationships, relationships that are more aligned with your highest self. right? If you look at the friendships I had 25 years ago, they don't look anything like the friendships I have now. I mean, there are some soul sisters that I had from childhood that I like will love forever and ever and ever, and I just got really lucky that they're like solid, good women, but they're not necessarily in my like inner circle, right? Right now, my inner circle, the people who I allow into my inner chamber are like high vibing women who are whatever. They're just high vibing women, they're healthy. They
And they
know how
can
to,
like meet you
and they
where
can
you're
meet
at.
me, that we can have conscious conversations. And if one of us really like does something to hurt the other, then we're able to hold space for each other, and there's real partnership there, and there's real love, and it's not coming from a place of like cattiness or not want we want the best for each other, and that's the foundation of these types of relationships when you've done this work.
Hmm.
Another thing is you kind of stop living from fear and you start living from intuition, right? You start
Oh, that
making,
is so huge.
right? Maybe we can do a whole podcast episode just on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fear and intuition are so, I think that's also too some of the biggest questions we get on Instagram is like, how do I discern fear or an anxiety from intuition? But
Yeah.
that's for another day,
Well, so
folks.
let's stay on that.
Stay
Well,
tuned. Yeah.
totally, totally, totally.
Yeah.
And another thing is like when you're on this journey, you find yourself not stuck anymore in the same cycles because you've done the work to break them. Right?
Hmm.
I'm constantly amazing myself when I find myself in a situation, maybe it's with a family member, maybe it's with a friend, maybe it's with my husband, right? That a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago might have triggered the crap out of me. And I find myself there and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this doesn't even touch me anymore. Like it literally isn't touching me anymore. Or even if it does touch me or it does stir something up inside, wow, I'm not reacting. I'm really not reacting. I'm letting the other person be who they are. And I don't need to prove anything. I don't need them to agree with me. I give them a little smile and I walk away. Right?
Right.
That's empowering. And this is when healing stops being something that you do and it starts to become something that you embody, right? It's no longer about fixing yourself. It's about
Hmm.
realizing that you were never broken to begin with. You're just coming back to who you truly were this whole time. And it's when you start to feel light again, it's when you start to feel free and when you start to feel whole.
Hmm. So we've kind of mapped out a certain rhythm that happens in the healing journey cyclically, right? Like there's the call to heal. There is some sort of realization or direction about what needs to be healed, like kind of like an impact moment. And then there's the integration.
Hmm.
So, can you explain to us what is integration, first of all? And how do we start to integrate the healing process?
Yeah. So, I mean, integration means taking all of the, um, what's the word? Um, mm, 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 mm. Basically taking all the fractured parts of yourself, right? There's a lot of fractured parts of ourselves that are not whole inside of us. And so integration is about taking all those pieces and kind of putting them back together like a puzzle, but it's a
Mhm.
puzzle that offers more alignment, more inner trust, more clarity, right? All the things that we've been talking about. So that the integration process is making sense of the healing journey and putting all the pieces together to create wholeness, essentially.
Mm.
Okay, now, does this mean that when a person is integrated, a trauma, a pain, a struggle, right? Does it mean that we're never going to struggle ever again? No. Healing is a lifelong journey, it's not a destination. But what changes is how you relate to yourself and how you relate to your challenges. So, integration offers a time period on this healing journey that allows you to really look at with more clarity the changes that need to be made and have you then integrate them back into your system. So, it
Mhm.
looks like, you stop fearing your emotions and you start listening to them. Like that can be an important part of integration,
It's
right?
almost like practicing too, like you're kind of
It's
like
practice.
real life practice.
Exactly,
Mhm.
100%, right? It's like you can have this moment where on your healing journey, you really put under a microscope something that you've been afraid of, right? And then during the integration period, you take that thing that you now have awareness on, because it's no longer in the realm of the unconscious, it's in the realm of what you can now be aware of. So now you can
Mm-hmm.
work with it. And you use that fear as an emotion that you can start listening to, start having a conversation with it, right? What is it that you're afraid of? Do a lot of the inner child work, right? And start integrating that little 5-year-old in you that you kind of neglected your whole life or have been ashamed of maybe your whole life, and you start reparenting her or him, right? So that's a part of integration. Another part of integration is you see yourself not seeking validation outside of yourself anymore, right? You're able to
Mm-hmm.
give yourself what it is that you've been looking for all along. And if someone outside of you comes and says, you're really awesome, that's just like a bonus. It's a cherry on top. But your sense of self and your confidence does not depend on that external validation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Also, too, it makes me think of a good one that like an easy one is like what we talked about recently in a podcast, like about boundaries. You know, when something kind of goes into your awareness spotlight, like unconscious
Mhm.
spotlight to the awareness spotlight, like, oh, I need to work on boundaries. And then it's like after that realization in the weeks ahead, you can really practice being like, okay, what actually are my boundaries? How do I start implementing them? How do I start voicing my needs? How do I start recognizing when my boundaries are crossed with other people? Like it's really like a experimentation time almost to see and practice um what that spotlight has shown you. Like almost like a rehearsal or something.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. It's a rehearsal.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, ta-da!
Exactly.
And then when the big tests come, you know, you feel like, whoa, I actually know how to handle this. Like this is what I've been training for, rehearsing for, practicing for.
And then it's not
And
as scary. And then it's not, if
yeah.
you think, when I'm facing big feelings in my own system, I'm not scared of them anymore because I've now
Hmm.
shown my system that it can trust me. That, you know what I mean? That I'm here for it. Like I am here for my inner child. You know,
Hmm.
I am here for all my parts. I'm not shaming them. I'm not telling them get lost, right? The anger that I might feel, the fear I might feel, it's all good. You're human. Nobody said that the only human emotion we're allowed to feel is joy, right? Like God gifted us with a rainbow, a
Yeah.
spectrum of human emotions. Who said only the pleasant ones were allowed to feel,
Right. And
right?
all of them are equally as important.
Equally as important.
Hmm.
You know, and the more we give ourselves an opportunity to feel it, that's how we heal it, right? My husband always says, you got to heal it, you got to feel it to heal it, right? And that's just, it's truer than true. So, wherever you are in this journey, you know, whether you're in the excitement phase, the unraveling, or the rebuilding, trust it. Trust the phase that you're in and welcome it, right? Trust that your soul knows exactly what it's doing. Trust that everything you're moving through is leading you somewhere greater. Okay. I mean, I really, you know, I'd love to just leave everyone with a blessing because I feel like this episode
Bless up.
calls us bless it up. I'm gonna bless you up.
Hmm.
Hi. May you be held in grace as you walk on your path of healing. May every wound be met with compassion. May every fear be softened with love. And may every step you take move you forward with divine guidance and divine wisdom. May you release what no longer serves you with ease and embrace the wholeness that has been yours all along. May your heart find peace and may your spirit find strength and may your soul remember its infinite light. You are healing, you are transforming, and whatever phase you're at in your healing journey, just know that you are never alone. Blessings. Until next time, remember healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's remembering who you've been all along. I love you. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going inside the Manifestation Method Portal app, your #1 destination for Kabbalistic manifestation. Inside, you'll unlock the secrets of manifestation through my proven Abra method, rooted in Kabbalah, psychology, and quantum physics, designed to help you manifest real, tangible results from the inside out. Join our global community of manifestors, explore our signature courses, monthly live manifestation workshops with me, Ayelet, and access our transformational hypno activations and attunements to rewire limiting beliefs and align with your soul's purpose. The app is available now on the Apple App Store and Google Play. To sign up, head over to ayeletpolonsky.com. Becoming a co-creator with the Creator is your birthright. Let's manifest the life you desire and deserve together.